Riverside Memorial Chapel in Portland, Oregon, as I sat in the front pew, staring at my grandmother's casket. Dorothy Mae Thompson had been 89 years old when she passed, and even though we knew it was coming, nothing prepared me for the hollow ache in my chest. I'm Abigail Thompson, and I was 32 years old when my world turned upside down. My grandmother raised me. That's the simple truth of it. When my parents died in a car accident when I was 7, Grandma Dorothy didn't hesitate. She took me into her sprawling Victorian home on Magnolia Hill, gave me the bedroom with the bay windows overlooking the rose garden, and became the only parent I'd ever really remember. My sister Vanessa was different. She was 15 when our parents died, old enough to remember them clearly, old enough to resent being uprooted from our childhood home in Seattle. She went to live with our Aunt Patricia in California and only visited Grandma's house on holidays. The visits grew shorter each year. By the time she turned 25, we'd see her maybe once a year, always around Christmas, always staying just long enough to exchange pleasantries before disappearing back to her life in San Diego. I never held it against her. Grief affects people differently. I found comfort in Grandma's steady presence, in the smell of her lavender sachets and the sound of jazz playing on Sunday mornings. Vanessa found hers in the distance. The service was ending. Reverend Marcus delivered a beautiful eulogy about Grandma's charity work and her famous blackberry pies that won the county fair 12 years running. People I didn't even recognize came up to share stories. Former students from her 40 years teaching 3rd grade, neighbors she'd helped through hard times, volunteers from the animal shelter where she spent her retirement. Vanessa sat beside me, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. She'd flown in 2 days ago, looking polished and put together in her black Chanel suit. We'd barely spoken. At the viewing the night before, she'd hugged me stiffly and murmured something about getting through this together. After the service, clusters of mourners gathered at Grandma's house for the reception. I'd spent the previous week preparing, cleaning rooms that hadn't been touched in months, arranging catering, making sure everything was perfect because that's what Grandma would have wanted. The house stood as magnificent as ever. 3 stories of Victorian architecture with its distinctive turret, wraparound porch, and the old oak tree in the front yard that had to be at least 200 years old. The property took up half an acre in one of Portland's most coveted historic neighborhoods. Real estate agents had been circling for years, leaving cards in the mailbox with eye-watering estimates of what the house could sell for. Grandma would throw them directly in the trash. "This house has history," she'd tell me. "Your great-great-grandfather built it in 1894. It stays in the family." I moved through the reception in a daze, accepting condolences, refilling coffee cups, making small talk about weather and memories. Vanessa worked the room like she was networking at a business conference, all warm smiles and firm handshakes. She'd always been the charismatic one, the one who could walk into any room and own it within minutes. By 6 p.m., the last guests had left. The catering company was packing up. I stood in the kitchen, exhausted, staring at a sink full of dishes. "You've done enough," Vanessa said from the doorway. She'd changed into jeans and a cashmere sweater. "The caterers will handle the rest. We should talk." My stomach tightened. "About what?" "The house. The estate. Everything." She walked to the kitchen table and sat down, folding her hands in front of her. "I know this has been hardest on you. You were closer to her. Vanessa, I can't think about this right now. I understand. But there are practicalities we need to discuss." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through something. "I've been in contact with an estate attorney, Gerald Brixton. Very reputable. He's handled several large estates in San Diego. He can help us navigate the will and probate process." "Grandma had an attorney," I said. "Leonard Fitzgerald. He's been her lawyer for 40 years. Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. "I called his office. He's apparently on some extended medical leave. Hip surgery or something. Anyway, Gerald can step in. Make things easier." Something felt off, but I was too tired to argue. "Whatever you think is best. I just want to honor what Grandma wanted." "Of course," Vanessa smiled. "That's all I want, too." The next morning, I woke to the sound of voices downstairs. Loud voices. I pulled on my robe and descended the main staircase, my hand trailing along the familiar banister that Grandma had polished every Saturday morning like clockwork. Vanessa stood in the foyer with a man in an expensive suit. He was tall, maybe 50, with silver hair and the kind of confident posture that came from winning arguments for a living. "Abigail," Vanessa said, her tone suddenly formal. "This is Gerald Brixton. We need to have a family meeting. Now." I glanced between them, confused. "What's going on?" Gerald stepped forward, extending his hand. "Miss Thompson, I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. Your sister has retained my services to handle your grandmother's estate. There are some matters we need to discuss immediately." "Okay," I said slowly, shaking his hand. "Can I at least make some coffee first?" "This won't take long," Vanessa said. Her smile had vanished. She walked into the living room, and Gerald followed. I had no choice but to join them. They sat on Grandma's antique sofa, the one she'd inherited from her mother, the one I wasn't allowed to sit on until I turned 13, and she decided I was careful enough. Vanessa looked comfortable there, her arms stretched across the back cushions. Gerald had a leather briefcase on his lap. I sat in the armchair across from them, still trying to shake the fog of sleep and grief. "Abigail," Gerald began, pulling documents from his briefcase. "Your sister has shown me a copy of your grandmother's last will and testament. I've reviewed it, and I need to inform you of its contents." My heart started to pound. "Where did you get a copy?" "Leonard Fitzgerald has the will." "I have it," Vanessa said flatly. "Grandma gave me a copy 6 months ago when I visited last spring." "You didn't visit last spring," I said. "I haven't seen you since Christmas 2 years ago." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "I made a private trip. We had things to discuss." "Adult things," Gerald cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. "Regardless, the will is clear. Your grandmother left the house and the majority of her estate to Vanessa Marie Thompson. You've been left a small cash inheritance of $10,000. The words hit me like a physical blow. "That's impossible." "I have the document right here," Gerald said, sliding papers across the coffee table. "Signed and dated April 15th of this year." I stared at the papers but couldn't focus on the words. My vision was swimming. Grandma wouldn't do that. She wouldn't. I lived here. I took care of her. When she got sick last year, I was the one who drove her to every doctor's appointment, who stayed up with her on bad nights. "I'm sure you did," Vanessa said, her voice cold. "And that $10,000 should cover your efforts." "This is my home," I whispered. "No." Vanessa stood up, towering over me. "This is my home now, and I'm going to need you to start packing. I'm giving you 48 hours as a courtesy. After that, I'll have to take legal action to remove you." I looked up at her, this stranger wearing my sister's face. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" "What I should have done years ago." She crossed her arms. "Grandma's funeral is over. The performance is done. This house is worth $3.2 million, Abigail. Did you really think I was going to let you squat here forever while the property appreciated?" Tears burned my eyes. I loved her. I love this house. "It's all I have left. You have $10,000, Vanessa said. "That's more than generous considering you've been living rent-free for 25 years. Gerald stood, clearly eager to exit this family drama. "I'll leave you two to discuss the logistics. Vanessa, call my office if you need anything." He nodded at me with something that might have been pity. "Ms. Thompson, I'm sorry." Then he left. The front door closed behind him with a soft click. Vanessa and I stood in the living room, the morning light streaming through the lace curtains Grandma had hung in 1987. "Why?" I asked. "Just tell me why." "A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off." Vanessa's expression softened for just a moment, a flicker of something that might have been guilt or might have been triumph. "Because I'm the oldest. Because this is what I deserve. And because, little sister, you've always been too naive to see how the world actually works." She walked past me toward the stairs. 48 hours, Abigail. Don't make this ugly." I stood alone in the living room, surrounded by 25 years of memories, and felt my entire life crumbling beneath my feet. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every creak of the old house felt like a countdown timer ticking away my remaining hours. I sat in Grandma's study, surrounded by her books and photographs, trying to make sense of what had just happened. 48 hours. That's all Vanessa had given me to pack up a lifetime. But something wasn't right. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, picking apart every detail. Grandma wouldn't have done this. Not without telling me. Not without explaining. We'd had dinner together 3 nights before she passed, and she'd held my hand across the table, telling me how grateful she was that I'd stayed, that I'd made this house a home. "You're the heart of this place, Abby," she'd said. "Don't ever forget that." Those weren't the words of someone about to disinherit me. I pulled open her desk drawer, searching for anything that might help. Grandma kept meticulous records. Every bill paid, every receipt saved, every document filed in perfect chronological order. If she'd changed her will, there would be paperwork, letters, something. The drawer was full of the usual items: pens, stamps, her reading glasses, a roll of breath mints. But underneath I found her address book. The brown leather was worn soft from decades of use. The pages yellowed and filled with Grandma's neat handwriting. I flipped through until I found it. Leonard Fitzgerald. Attorney at law. His office number, his cell phone, even his home address in Lake Oswego. My hands shook as I dialed his office number. It was 11 p.m., but maybe there was an emergency line, a voicemail, or something. The phone rang 4 times before an automated message picked up. "You've reached the law offices of Fitzgerald and Associates. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If this is an emergency, please press 1 to be connected to our answering service." I pressed 1. Another ring. Then a woman's voice, tired but professional. "Fitzgerald and Associates answering service. How can I help you?" "I need to speak with Leonard Fitzgerald. It's urgent. It's about Dorothy Thompson's estate." A pause. "I'm sorry, Mr. Fitzgerald is currently on medical leave. Can another attorney assist you?" "When will he be back?" "I don't have that information, ma'am. He's recovering from surgery. His office manager would know more, but she won't be available until Monday morning." Monday. That was 3 days away. I'd be homeless by then if Vanessa had her way. Is there any way to reach him? This is about his client's will. Her granddaughter is trying to— "Ma'am, I can't give out personal contact information, but I can leave a message for the office manager to call you first thing Monday morning. Would that help?" I left my name and number, knowing it wouldn't be enough. I needed answers now. After hanging up, I sat in the darkness of the study thinking. Vanessa claimed she'd visited in April, that she'd met with Grandma privately. But I'd been here in April. I've been here every single day. How could Vanessa have visited without me knowing? Unless she'd come when I was at work. I worked at the Portland Public Library downtown, usually Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Vanessa could have come on one of those days. But Grandma would have mentioned it. We talked every evening over dinner. She told me everything, about her day, her bridge club gossip, which neighbor's cat had gotten into her flower beds. She never mentioned Vanessa visiting. I opened Grandma's laptop, an old Dell she'd used mostly for email and online shopping. I knew her password. She'd written it on a sticky note attached to the monitor because she could never remember it. Blue Jay 1935. Her email account loaded slowly. I scrolled through April's messages, looking for anything from or about Vanessa. Nothing. No flight confirmations. No mentions of a visit, no correspondence at all. Then I checked her bank statements, which she kept in a spreadsheet because she didn't trust online banking completely. April's expenses were routine: utilities, groceries, her monthly donation to the animal shelter, her prescription medications, no hotel charges, no restaurant bills for 2, no unusual expenses that would suggest a visitor. I sat back, my mind racing. Either Vanessa was lying about the April visit, or Grandma had hidden it from me completely, which seemed impossible given how close we were. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop digging. Accept reality. You have 47 hours. But she was watching me. Or maybe she just guessed I'd start investigating. Either way, the message was clear. Back off. But I couldn't. Not when everything screamed that something was wrong. I thought about the will Gerald had shown me. I'd been too shocked to examine it closely, but now I wished I'd taken photos, studied the signatures, and looked for anything suspicious. Wills could be forged. It happened all the time. People got greedy, especially when millions of dollars were at stake. I needed to see that document again. The next morning, I found Vanessa in the kitchen, drinking coffee and scrolling through her phone. She'd made herself completely at home, using Grandma's favorite mug, the one with the painted violets that I'd given her for Mother's Day 10 years ago. "I need to see the will again," I said. Vanessa didn't look up. "No, I have a right to see it. If Grandma really left everything to you, I deserve to understand why." "You saw it yesterday." She took a sip of coffee. "Gerald showed you. It's legitimate. End of story." Then showing me again shouldn't be a problem. Finally, she looked at me. Her eyes were cold, calculating. "You're wasting your time, Abigail. And mine. The will is filed with the county. It's going through probate. You can hire your own lawyer if you want, but it'll cost you more than your $10,000 inheritance, and you'll lose anyway." "Why are you being like this?" I asked, my voice breaking. "We're sisters. We're all we have left." Something flickered across her face. Pain, maybe, or regret. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. We were never really sisters. Not in any way that mattered. You were Grandma's favorite, her little project. I was just the inconvenient teenager she had to deal with. That's not true, isn't it? Vanessa stood up abruptly. "You got this house, this fairy tale life, while I was shipped off to Aunt Patricia's cramped apartment in San Diego. You got the bedtime stories and the homemade cookies and the college fund. What did I get? A monthly check and a 'hope you're doing well' phone call. Grandma loved you." "Grandma tolerated me," Vanessa snapped. "There's a difference." And now finally she's acknowledged it. She knew she owed me. That's why she changed her will. But even as she said it, I could hear the hollowness in her words. She didn't believe it either. This wasn't about fairness or old wounds. This was about something else. Money. It always came back to money. "Are you in debt?" I asked quietly. "Is that what this is about?" Vanessa's jaw tightened. "My finances are none of your concern. Vanessa, if you need help, I don't need help from you." She grabbed her mug and walked toward the door. "I need you gone. You have 34 hours left. I suggest you start packing." After she left, I stood in the kitchen, feeling the walls close in. I had no money for a lawyer. No place to go. No way to fight this. But I had something Vanessa didn't expect. I knew Grandma. I knew her handwriting, her habits, her quirks. And I knew where she kept her secrets. When I was 13, Grandma had shown me a hidden compartment in her bedroom closet, a false panel behind the shoe rack where she kept her important documents. "Just in case," she'd told me with a wink. "Every woman needs a safe place for her treasures." I raced upstairs to her bedroom. Vanessa had already started claiming it, her designer luggage sprawled across the bed, her toiletries lined up on the dresser. I ignored it all and went straight to the walk-in closet. The shoe rack was still there, dusty and untouched. I pulled it away from the wall and felt along the panel for the small indentation that would release the latch. Click. The panel swung open, revealing a shallow space about a foot wide. Inside was a metal document box, the kind you'd buy at any office supply store. My heart hammered as I pulled it out and opened the lid. Papers. Lots of them. I rifled through quickly. Grandma's birth certificate, her marriage license, my parents' death certificates, report cards from my childhood, photographs, and at the bottom, in a sealed manila envelope, last will and testament of Dorothy Mae Thompson. My hands trembled as I opened it. The document inside was dated March 3rd, more than a month before the April date on Vanessa's version. I scanned the pages, my eyes moving faster and faster. The house was left to me. Everything was left to me, Vanessa got $50,000 and some jewelry, but the bulk of the estate, the house, the investments, the savings, all of it came to me with one simple explanation in Grandma's own handwriting at the bottom. Abigail has been my faithful companion and the light of my final years. This house needs someone who will love it as I have. That person is Abigail. I clutched the document to my chest, tears streaming down my face. I'd been right. Grandma hadn't betrayed me, which meant Vanessa had. The question was, how far had she gone to steal my inheritance? I sat on the closet floor, the real will clutched in my shaking hands, trying to process what I'd discovered. Vanessa hadn't just lied about visiting Grandma in April. She'd produced a fraudulent will. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. This was a crime, but proving it was another matter entirely. I carefully photographed every page of the real will with my phone, making sure the date and Grandma's signature were crystal clear. Then I placed the original back in the metal box and returned it to the hidden compartment. If Vanessa found out I'd discovered it, she might destroy it before I could get help. My mind raced through options. I could call the police, but what would I tell them? My sister has a will dated April, I have one dated March, and I'm not a handwriting expert or a lawyer. They'd probably tell me it was a civil matter and to hire an attorney. Which brought me back to the same problem. I had no money and no time. I needed Leonard Fitzgerald. He was the only one who could verify which will was legitimate, who could speak to Grandma's intentions, who had the authority to stop this before it was too late. I dialed his office again. Even though it was only 8 a.m., the answering service picked up immediately. This is Abigail Thompson. I called last night about Dorothy Thompson's estate. This is an emergency. Someone is trying to steal my inheritance with a forged will, and I have less than 30 hours before I'm forcibly removed from my home. Please, I need someone to contact Leonard Fitzgerald immediately. His client's final wishes are being violated. The operator's voice was sympathetic but firm. Ma'am, I've noted your message as urgent. That's all I can do. The office opens at 9. Someone will call you. It wasn't enough, but it would have to do. I spent the next hour making copies of everything I could find. Grandma's financial records, her correspondence, photographs of us together over the years. Anything that might prove our relationship, that might show a judge or a court that I was the one who'd been here, not Vanessa. At 9:02 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number, hello? Is this Abigail Thompson? A woman's voice, crisp and professional. Yes. Are you calling from Leonard Fitzgerald's office? I am. My name is Ruth Hendricks. I'm Mr. Fitzgerald's office manager. I understand you've been trying to reach him regarding Dorothy Thompson's estate? Relief flooded through me. Yes. My grandmother passed away 5 days ago, and my sister is claiming she has a will leaving everything to her. But I found another will, an earlier one, that tells a completely different story. I need Mr. Fitzgerald to verify which one is real. There was a pause. Ms. Thompson, I'm aware of your grandmother's passing. Mr. Fitzgerald was quite upset when he heard. Dorothy was a dear client and friend for many years. Then he needs to know what's happening. Someone forged a will. My sister has hired an attorney and she's trying to evict me in less than 30 hours. Slow down, Ruth said gently. Let me make sure I understand. Your sister has presented a will? Yes, dated April 15th. Her lawyer showed it to me yesterday. Another pause, longer this time. April 15th. Who is her attorney? Gerald Brixton. I'm from San Diego. I see. Ruth's tone had changed. Something was wrong. Ms. Thompson, I need you to listen very carefully. Mr. Fitzgerald updated your grandmother's will on March 3rd of this year. That was the final version. He keeps the original in his office safe, and he gave your grandmother a copy for her records. There was no April will. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. So the one Vanessa has is fraudulent, Ruth said flatly. And if this Mr. Brixton is presenting it as legitimate, he's either incompetent or complicit. What do I do? First, do not leave that house. You have every legal right to be there, more than your sister does. Second, I need you to bring me the copy of the will you found. Where did you find it exactly? In a hidden compartment in Grandma's closet. In a document box. Perfect. That's exactly where Dorothy kept important papers. Mr. Fitzgerald knew about that hiding spot. He's the one who suggested it to her years ago. I could hear Ruth typing rapidly. I'm going to make some calls. In the meantime, do you still have contact with this Gerald Brixton? He gave me his card yesterday. Good. Don't call him yet. I want to coordinate with Mr. Fitzgerald first. He's still recovering, but this is serious enough that I know he'll want to handle it personally. More typing. Can you come to our office at 2 p.m. today? Yes, absolutely. Bring the will. Bring any other documents you have. And Ms. Thompson, if your sister tries to remove you from the house before then, call 911. You're not a trespasser. You're the legal heir. Do you understand? Tears were streaming down my face. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll sort this out, Ruth said firmly. Dorothy Thompson was a remarkable woman, and she made her wishes very clear to Mr. Fitzgerald. We won't let anyone disrespect those wishes. After hanging up, I sat on my bed, overwhelmed with relief and anger in equal measure. Vanessa had gone so far as to create a fake will. How? Who helped her? Did Gerald Brixton know it was fraudulent, or had Vanessa fooled him too? I didn't have long to wonder. Around 10 a.m., I heard voices downstairs. Loud voices. I crept to the landing and peered down. Vanessa was in the foyer with two men in dark uniforms. Security guards? One of them had a clipboard. She's still here, Vanessa was saying. Upstairs. I need her removed from the property. My blood turned to ice. She was trying to throw me out early. I descended the stairs, forcing myself to stay calm. I'm not going anywhere. Vanessa spun around, her face flushed with anger. You had 48 hours. I'm being generous by giving you that. But if you're going to spend that time moping around feeling sorry for yourself instead of packing, then I'm accelerating the timeline. You can't do this, I said, looking at the security guards. This is my house. She's lying to you. One of the guards, a middle-aged man with a gray beard, looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, we were hired to assist with a property transition. If there's a legal dispute— There's no dispute, Vanessa interrupted. I have the will. I have documentation. She's refusing to leave. I spoke with Grandma's actual attorney this morning, I said, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. Leonard Fitzgerald? The will you have is fake, Vanessa, and I can prove it. The color drained from Vanessa's face for just a second before she recovered. That's absurd. You're making things up because you can't accept reality. Then call Gerald Brixton right now, I challenged. Ask him to verify the will with Leonard Fitzgerald's office. If it's legitimate, Fitzgerald will confirm it. If it's not— I let the implication hang in the air. The security guard with the clipboard cleared his throat. Ladies, this sounds like something that needs to be resolved through the courts. We can't remove someone from a property if there's a competing claim to ownership. There is no competing claim. Vanessa's voice was rising, panicked now. I showed you the will, and she says she has another will, the guard said. Look, ma'am, we're not lawyers. We're not getting in the middle of this. You need to file the proper paperwork with the county and let a judge sort it out. I'm paying you. Not enough to risk a wrongful eviction lawsuit, the second guard said. He nodded at me apologetically. Sorry for the confusion, miss. They left. The door closed behind them with a definitive thud. Vanessa and I stood in the foyer, alone. You found it, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. The real will? Yes, I found it exactly where Grandma kept it. Vanessa's hands were trembling. You don't understand. I needed this. The house, the money, I needed it. For what? I demanded. What was worth lying to me? Worth dishonoring Grandma's memory? She sank onto the bottom step of the staircase, her polished exterior finally cracking. I'm broke, Abby, completely broke. I lost my job 6 months ago. I'm 3 months behind on my mortgage. My credit cards are maxed out. I'm about to lose everything. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. Why didn't you just tell me? Tell Grandma? We could have helped. With what? Vanessa laughed bitterly. Grandma's monthly checks? Those stopped being enough to live on years ago. And you? You're a librarian making $40,000 a year. Neither of you could have saved me. So you decided to steal instead. I decided to survive, Vanessa said fiercely. When I heard Grandma was sick, I saw an opportunity, a way out. I came up here in April but did not see her. I came to scope out the house to figure out what it was worth. And when I realized it was millions, she shrugged. I did what I had to do. You forged a will. I had it drafted by someone who owed me a favor. Someone who didn't ask too many questions? Gerald doesn't know. He thinks it's real. I showed him some fake emails, some fabricated documents. He had no reason to doubt me. I stared at my sister, this stranger, and felt nothing but disgust. You need to leave, now, before I call the police and have you arrested for fraud. Vanessa stood up slowly, wiping her eyes. You won't do that. We're family. Family doesn't do what you did. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. Then Vanessa picked up her purse from the hall table. I'll be at the Riverside Hotel if you change your mind about pressing charges. But think carefully, Abby. A trial would drag Grandma's name through the mud. Her legacy, this house, everything would be tied up in court for years. Is that really what you want? She walked out the door, leaving it open behind her. I closed it, locked it, and leaned against the solid wood, finally allowing myself to fall apart. But even as I cried, I knew one thing for certain. I had a 2 p.m. appointment with Leonard Fitzgerald, and I was going to make sure Grandma's real wishes were honored, no matter what it cost. The law offices of Fitzgerald and Associates occupied the 3rd floor of a historic brick building in downtown Portland, just blocks from the waterfront. I arrived 15 minutes early, the manila envelope containing Grandma's real will pressed against my chest like a shield. The reception area was elegant but understated. Mahogany furniture, botanical prints on the walls, the faint smell of coffee and old books. A young receptionist with bright red hair looked up as I entered. You must be Abigail Thompson. Ruth is expecting you. Please, have a seat. She'll be right out. I'd barely sat down when a door opened and a woman in her 60s emerged. She was tall, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. Her handshake was firm. Abigail, I'm Ruth Hendricks. Thank you for coming so promptly. She gestured toward the hallway. Leonard is ready to see you. I thought he was recovering from surgery. He is. But when I told him what was happening, he insisted on coming in. Dorothy Thompson's estate is not something he's willing to delegate. Ruth's expression was grave. What your sister has attempted is one of the most serious forms of fraud we've encountered. Leonard wants to handle this personally. She led me to a corner office with windows overlooking the Willamette River. Behind a massive oak desk sat a man who had to be in his late 70s. With a shock of white hair and piercing blue eyes, he was moving carefully, clearly still recovering, but his gaze was sharp and alert. Ms. Thompson, he said, rising slowly from his chair. Please sit. I'm Leonard Fitzgerald. I had the privilege of representing your grandmother for over 4 decades. I sat across from him, placing the envelope on his desk. Thank you for seeing me. I know you're supposed to be resting. Resting can wait. He opened the envelope and carefully removed the will, his weathered hands handling it with practiced ease. He read through it silently, nodding occasionally. This is the original copy I gave Dorothy. You found it in the hidden compartment? Yes, sir. Exactly where she kept it. Good. That's very good. He set the document down and folded his hands. Now tell me about this April your sister will produce. I recounted everything. The funeral, Gerald Brixton's appearance, the will dated April 15th, Vanessa's claim about a private visit, her confession that morning about forging the document. Leonard's expression darkened with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Your sister made a critical error, he finally said. She assumed I would be unavailable long enough for her scheme to succeed. My hip surgery was scheduled for March 20th, and she must have been counting on me being out of commission for months. He tapped the desk. What she didn't account for was Ruth. My office manager is as protective of my clients as I am, perhaps more so. Ruth, who'd been standing by the window, smiled grimly. Dorothy Thompson baked me cookies every Christmas for 15 years. Nobody defrauds her granddaughter on my watch. The question now, Leonard continued, is how we proceed. We have several options, each with different consequences. He pulled a legal pad toward him and began writing as he spoke. Option 1. We file a formal complaint with the Oregon State Bar against Gerald Brixton. If he knowingly presented a fraudulent will, he could be disbarred. However, you mentioned your sister claims he doesn't know it's fake. That's what she said. She told him it was real and showed him fabricated documents. Then he's a fool, but possibly not a criminal. Still, his due diligence was severely lacking. Any competent attorney would verify a will's authenticity with the previous attorney of record, which would be me. He made a note. Option 2. We file criminal charges against your sister for fraud, forgery, and attempted theft. This would almost certainly result in her arrest and prosecution. My stomach twisted. Despite everything, the thought of Vanessa in handcuffs made me feel sick. I can see that troubles you, Leonard said gently. It should. She's your sister, and these are serious charges. But understand, what she did wasn't just wrong. It was calculated, premeditated, and designed to steal your birthright. If we don't pursue charges, what's to stop her from trying again? Or doing this to someone else? Is there an option 3? I asked quietly. Leonard exchanged a glance with Ruth. There is, though it's the least satisfying from a legal standpoint. We could offer your sister a settlement. She signs an affidavit admitting the April will is fraudulent, returns any documents she fabricated, and agrees never to contest the real will. In exchange, you don't press criminal charges. She'd walk away free? Not entirely. The affidavit would be a legal document. If she ever tried something like this again, we'd have proof of prior fraud. It would destroy any future case she might bring. And she'd still receive the $50,000 your grandmother left her in the legitimate will, once the estate clears probate. I thought about Vanessa sitting in that hotel room, her carefully constructed life in ruins, about the desperation that had driven her to this, about whether someone who'd already proven they'd lie, cheat, and steal could be trusted to honor any agreement. What do you recommend? I asked. Leonard leaned back carefully in his chair. Legally? Option 2. Prosecute to the fullest extent of the law, but I'm not the one who has to live with the decision. You are. And I know Dorothy well enough to know she wouldn't want this to destroy what's left of your family, assuming there's anything worth saving. She talked about us, I said. About me and Vanessa. She used to say she hoped we'd find our way back to each other someday. That we were all we had left. Dorothy was an optimist, Leonard said. Sometimes to a fault, but she was also practical. That's why she left the house to you, Abigail. She knew you'd protect it, care for it. She knew you were the one who'd been there when it mattered. Ruth walked over and placed a hand on my shoulder. You don't have to decide right now. Think about it. But whatever you choose, we'll support you. The real will is being filed with the probate court this afternoon. As of 5 p.m. today, you are the legal owner of that house, pending the standard probate process. Your sister has no claim, none whatsoever. Relief washed over me so powerfully I nearly started crying again. Thank you. Both of you. I don't know what I would have done. You would have fought, Leonard said firmly. You're Dorothy's granddaughter. Fighting for what's right is in your blood. He reached for his phone. Now, I think it's time I had a conversation with Mr. Gerald Brixton. Ruth, can you get him on the line? With pleasure, Ruth said, returning to her desk. While we waited, Leonard asked me about my life, about my job at the library, about my plans for the house. It felt surreal, sitting here discussing home repairs and property taxes while my sister's future hung in the balance. Ruth's voice came through the speakerphone. I have Mr. Brixton on line 1. Leonard pressed the button. Mr. Brixton, this is Leonard Fitzgerald. I'm the attorney who represented Dorothy Mae Thompson for over 40 years. I understand you've been presenting yourself as counsel for her estate? There was a pause. Then a man's voice, cautious. Mr. Fitzgerald, yes, I've been retained by Vanessa Thompson to handle probate matters. Is there a problem? A significant one. The will you're working from is fraudulent. The authentic will, which I drafted and witnessed, leaves the bulk of the estate to Abigail Thompson, not Vanessa. Silence. Then, that's impossible. I've reviewed the document thoroughly. It appears legitimate. Did you contact me to verify its authenticity? Another pause. I was told you were unavailable due to medical leave. My office has been open throughout my recovery. My office manager has been available daily. A single phone call would have revealed the truth. Leonard's voice was ice. You've been presenting a forged will to an heir, Mr. Brixton. Either you knew it was fraudulent, or your due diligence was criminally negligent. Which is it? I had no idea. Vanessa provided documentation, emails from Dorothy. Fabricated. All of it. The real will is being filed with the county this afternoon. I strongly suggest you withdraw from this case immediately and advise your client to retain a criminal defense attorney. She's going to need one. I could hear the panic in Brixton's voice now. Mr. Fitzgerald, I assure you, I had no knowledge. Then you're incompetent, which may be worse than being corrupt. I'll be filing a complaint with the state bar regarding your conduct. Good day, Mr. Brixton. Leonard disconnected the call and looked at me with satisfaction. That's one problem addressed. Now about your sister. I need your decision by the end of business tomorrow. Either we file charges or we offer the settlement. But Abigail, choose wisely. Sometimes mercy is justice, and sometimes it's just cowardice dressed up in nice clothes. I left the office an hour later with copies of all the relevant documents, Leonard's business card, and a decision weighing on my heart that felt heavier than anything I'd ever carried. By the time I got back to the house, Vanessa was sitting on the front porch steps, waiting for me. Vanessa looked different sitting on those porch steps. Smaller somehow. Her designer clothes seemed wrinkled, her makeup smudged. She wasn't the polished, confident woman who'd walked into Grandma's funeral 5 days ago. She looked defeated. I stopped at the bottom of the steps, keys in hand. How did you know I'd come back here? Where else would you go? Vanessa's voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying. This is your home. It always has been. I climbed past her and unlocked the door, leaving it open, an unspoken invitation. She followed me inside. We stood in the living room, the afternoon light casting long shadows across Grandma's furniture. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. This house has always been my sanctuary. Now it felt like a crime scene. Gerald called me, Vanessa said, after he spoke with Leonard Fitzgerald. He's dropping me as a client. Said I lied to him, that he could lose his license because of what I did. She laughed bitterly. He's probably right. You should have thought about that before you forged a will. I know. She sank into the armchair, Grandma's favorite, the one with the embroidered cushion. I know what I did was wrong, Abby. I'm not here to defend it. Then why are you here? Vanessa looked up at me, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Because I need to know if you're going to have me arrested. I walked to the window, looking out at the rose garden where Grandma and I used to spend Saturday mornings. She'd taught me the names of every variety. Crimson Glory, Moonstone Peace. We'd prune them together, her weathered hands guiding mine, teaching me patience and care. Leonard gave me 2 options, I said without turning around. Either I press charges and you face prosecution for fraud and forgery, or you sign an affidavit admitting what you did, and I let you walk away with the $50,000 Grandma left you. I heard Vanessa's sharp intake of breath. She left me money? In the real will? $50,000 in some of her jewelry. She didn't forget about you, Vanessa, even though you forgot about her. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I didn't forget her, Vanessa finally said. I couldn't be what she needed me to be. The grateful granddaughter who showed up for Sunday dinners and holiday celebrations. Every time I came here, I felt like I was failing some test I didn't even know I was taking. I turned to face her. That was all in your head. Grandma loved you. She talked about you constantly. Wondered how you were doing, if you were happy, if you'd found someone special. She kept every birthday card you ever sent her in a box in her study. Tears spilled down Vanessa's cheeks. Then why didn't she leave me the house? Why you and not me? Because I was here, I said simply. Because I showed up. Because loving someone means being present, even when it's hard. even when you'd rather be somewhere else. You made your choice 15 years ago, Vanessa. You chose distance. I chose to stay. And now you get to choose whether I go to prison. I sat down on the sofa, suddenly exhausted. Leonard said something interesting. He said sometimes mercy is justice, and sometimes it's just cowardice. I've been trying to figure out which one applies here. What did you decide? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. I saw the frightened teenager who'd lost her parents too young. The angry young woman who'd pushed everyone away because accepting love meant risking more loss. The desperate middle-aged woman who'd made terrible choices out of fear and pride. But I also saw the person who'd forged legal documents, who'd lied to my face, who'd been willing to throw me out onto the street without a second thought. I haven't decided yet, I admitted. Part of me wants to let the legal system handle this. You committed a serious crime, Vanessa. You should face consequences. I know. But another part of me remembers Grandma's voice at that last dinner we had. She told me that family is complicated, that people make mistakes, that holding grudges is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I rubbed my temples. She'd want me to forgive you. I know she will. You don't have to forgive me to let me avoid prison, Vanessa said quietly. Those are two different things. She was right. Forgiveness was personal, intimate, something that might take years or might never come at all. The legal decision was practical, a choice about punishment and redemption. Tell me the truth, I said. All of it. How did you forge the will? Who helped you? Vanessa wiped her eyes. I have a friend in San Diego, Marcus Chen. He's a paralegal, works for a small firm that handles estate planning. I asked him hypothetically how someone might draft a will, what the legal language would look like. He thought I was asking for myself, for my own estate planning. Did he know what you were planning? No, I never told him about Grandma, never mentioned Portland or the house. I just took the templates he gave me and filled them in myself. Found a witness signature template online, forged Grandma's signature from old birthday cards she'd sent me. She was speaking rapidly now, the words tumbling out like a confession. The hardest part was making it look old enough, making the paper seem official. I bought special paper from an office supply store, aged it with tea stains and crumpled it a few times to make it look handled. It was methodical, calculated, worse than I'd imagined. And Gerald Brixton? I found him online, chose someone from out of state who wouldn't know Leonard Fitzgerald. I told him I'd been Grandma's primary caregiver the last year, that she'd updated her will to reflect that. I showed him fake email exchanges I'd created, fake photos of us together that I'd photoshopped. She covered her face with her hands. God, Abby, I'm a monster. I know that's what you're thinking. I'm thinking you're desperate, I said, and desperation makes people do terrible things. But it doesn't excuse them. Vanessa lowered her hands. What would the settlement require? Specifically, I pulled out the notes Leonard had given me. You signed a sworn affidavit admitting the April will was fabricated by you. You provide details about how you created it. You agree never to contest the real will or make any claim to the house or estate beyond what Grandma left you. You pay any legal fees Gerald Brixton incurred. And you agree to stay away from me for at least 1 year. No contact unless it's a genuine emergency. A year? I need time, Vanessa. Time to process this, to heal, to figure out if we can ever have any kind of relationship again. If we're going to move forward, it has to be on completely new terms. The old dynamic, the resentment, the distance, the unspoken competition, all of that has to die. Vanessa nodded slowly. And if I sign the affidavit, you won't press charges? That's the deal. But understand something. If you ever try anything like this again, if you violate the agreement in any way, Leonard has promised me he'll pursue prosecution with everything he has. This is your only chance, Vanessa. You're the only one. I understand. She stood up, smoothing down her clothes in a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. When do I need to sign? Leonard's office. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. He'll have the documents ready. Vanessa walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the knob. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Not just because I got caught. I'm sorry for all of it. For not being here. For not being the sister you deserved. For letting my anger and jealousy turn me into someone who could do something this cruel. I know, I said. And surprisingly, I did believe her. Not enough to forgive, not yet. But enough to believe the remorse was genuine. Will you ever be able to forgive me? I thought about Grandma's roses. How you had to prune away the dead growth before new blooms could emerge. Maybe, someday, but not tomorrow. Vanessa nodded, unsurprised. Fair enough. She opened the door, then looked back one more time. Take care of the house, Abby. It suits you. Then she was gone, the door closing softly behind her. I stood alone in the living room as the afternoon faded into evening, watching the light shift and change across the walls I'd known my entire adult life. Tomorrow, I'd go to Leonard's office and watch Vanessa sign away her lies. The house would officially enter probate, and in a few months it would legally be mine. But tonight, I just wanted to sit in Grandma's chair and remember the woman who'd given me everything. Not just a house, but a home. Not just an inheritance, but a legacy of love, integrity, and the strength to make hard choices. I pulled out my phone and texted Leonard. I'll take the settlement. Have the papers ready tomorrow. His response came within seconds. Wise choice. Dorothy would be proud. I wasn't sure about that. But I was sure about one thing. I'd made the choice I could live with. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The next morning, I arrived at Leonard Fitzgerald's office 15 minutes before Vanessa. Ruth greeted me with coffee and a reassuring smile, leading me to a conference room where Leonard was already seated with a stack of documents. Good morning, Abigail, he said. Are you certain about this decision? As certain as I can be, I replied, taking a seat across from him. At exactly 9 a.m., the receptionist buzzed. Ms. Vanessa Thompson is here. Send her in, Leonard said. Vanessa entered looking like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no designer clothes, just jeans and a plain sweater. She looked more like the sister I remembered from childhood than the stranger who'd shown up at the funeral. Thank you for coming, Leonard said, his tone professional but not unkind. Please sit. We have several documents to review. For the next hour, Leonard walked Vanessa through each page of the affidavit. She had to detail exactly how she'd created the fraudulent will, confirm that Gerald Brixton had no knowledge of the forgery, and acknowledge that any future attempt to contest Dorothy's real will would result in immediate criminal prosecution. Vanessa's hand shook as she signed each page, but she didn't hesitate. When it was done, Leonard gathered the documents and placed them in a folder. This matter is now closed from a legal standpoint, he said. The real will has been filed with probate court. Abigail, you should expect the process to take approximately 4 to 6 months, barring any complications. Vanessa, your $50,000 inheritance will be distributed to you at the conclusion of probate. Until then, I strongly suggest you seek employment and begin rebuilding your life honestly, Vanessa nodded. I've already started applying for jobs. I have an interview next week in San Diego. Good. Leonard stood, signaling the meeting was over. I hope I never see either of you in my office under these circumstances again. Vanessa and I walked out together, the silence between us heavy but not hostile. On the sidewalk outside, she turned to me. I'm catching a flight this afternoon, she said. Back to California. I won't contact you. But Abby, thank you. For giving me this chance? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Vanessa started to walk away, then stopped. I meant what I said yesterday. Take care of the house, and take care of yourself. Then she was gone, disappearing into the morning crowd on the street. I stood there for a moment, watching her go, feeling something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. Maybe the understanding that people are complicated, that they make terrible choices for understandable reasons, and that justice isn't always about punishment. 3 weeks later, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address, but I recognized Vanessa's handwriting. Inside was a short letter and a check for $2,000. Abby. I know this doesn't fix anything, but it's the money I had left after paying Gerald's legal fees. I want you to have it. Use it for the house. I know there's always something that needs repairing. I got the job. Nothing glamorous, but it's honest work and it pays the bills. I'm seeing a therapist twice a week. Turns out I have a lot to work through. I won't break the no-contact agreement. But I wanted you to know I'm trying. Really trying. Take care. I folded the letter and placed it in Grandma's desk drawer, next to the old photographs and birthday cards. Then I deposited the check and used it to hire someone to restore the rose garden, which had gotten overgrown in the months since Grandma had been too sick to tend it. The probate process moved slowly, as Leonard had warned. There were appraisals and paperwork, creditors to notify and taxes to calculate. But by early spring it was done. The house was officially, legally, mine. I stood in the living room on a Saturday morning, sunlight streaming through the lace curtains, and tried to figure out what came next. I could sell it. Real estate agents were still leaving cards in the mailbox with increasingly aggressive offers. The money would be life-changing. I could travel, go back to school, do anything I wanted. But the thought of strangers walking through these rooms, of someone else sleeping in Grandma's bedroom or painting over the pencil marks on the kitchen doorframe where she'd measured my height every birthday, it made my chest tight. This house was more than property. It was a memory made solid. It was every Sunday morning jazz session, every batch of blackberry pie, every late-night conversation in the kitchen when I couldn't sleep. It was Grandma's laughter and wisdom, her patience and strength. It was home. I decided to stay. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because Grandma had trusted me to protect this place, and I would honor that trust. I made changes slowly, respectfully. Grandma's bedroom became a library, her books lining floor-to-ceiling shelves I had custom built. The attic, which had been full of old furniture and forgotten boxes, I converted into a writing studio with skylights and a reading nook. The rose garden flourished under professional care, blooming more brilliantly than it had in years. I kept my job at the library, not because I needed the income anymore, but because I loved it. The routine, the quiet, the satisfaction of connecting people with the stories they needed. 6 months after the probate closed, I received another letter. This time from Vanessa's therapist, sent with Vanessa's permission, asking if I'd be willing to participate in a family therapy session via video call. No pressure, no obligation, just an opportunity if I was ready. I thought about it for 3 days. Then I replied, not yet, but maybe someday, because that was the truth. The wounds were still too fresh, the betrayal too recent. But I wasn't closing the door completely, just leaving it slightly ajar, waiting to see what time and distance might heal. 1 year to the day after Grandma's funeral, I hosted a memorial gathering at the house. I invited her old friends, former students, neighbors, and volunteers from the animal shelter. We shared stories and laughter, tears and blackberry pie that I'd made from her recipe. My first attempt, not quite as good as hers, but close enough. Reverend Marcus gave a toast. Dorothy Thompson believed in second chances. She believed people could change, could grow, could become better versions of themselves. She lived that belief every day of her life. And I think the greatest tribute we can pay her is to carry that forward. As people mingled through the house, sharing memories and photographs, I stood in the doorway of the living room and felt Grandma's presence so strongly it was almost physical. Not haunting, just there. A gentle reminder that love doesn't end when someone dies. It transforms, becomes something you carry forward. Late that evening, after everyone had left and I was cleaning up, I found a photograph that had fallen behind the sofa. It was old, the colors faded. Grandma was a young woman, maybe 30, standing in front of this very house with 2 little girls. Her daughters. My mother and Aunt Patricia, on the back, in Grandma's handwriting. Family is complicated. Love is simple. Choose love. I taped the photograph to the refrigerator where I'd see it every morning. A reminder of what mattered, of what Grandma had taught me. That night, I slept in my old bedroom, the one with the bay windows overlooking the rose garden. I didn't dream of courtrooms or lawyers or forged documents. I dreamed of Grandma, teaching me to prune roses, her weathered hands guiding mine, her voice soft and patient. "Careful, Abby. You have to cut away the dead growth before new blooms can come." I woke with tears on my face and peace in my heart. The house was mine. The legacy was mine. And the choice of what to do with both, that was mine too. I chose to build something new on the foundation Grandma had left me. Not just a house, but a life filled with purpose and grace. Not just an inheritance, but a future worth living. And somewhere, I knew Grandma was smiling. 2 years later, I received a Christmas card. It was from Vanessa. No long letters, no dramatic declarations. Just a card with a simple message. "Hope you're well." "The roses must be beautiful this time of year," I wrote back. "Just as brief, just as careful?" "They are. Hope you're well too." It wasn't forgiveness, not completely. But it was a start. A tiny seed planted in scorched earth, waiting to see if anything could grow. And maybe that's all family is sometimes. The willingness to keep trying, even when it hurts. The choice to leave the door open, even just a crack for the possibility of something better. Grandma would have liked that. She always did believe in second chances. After all, she gave me one when I was 7 years old and had nowhere else to go. The least I could do was pass that gift forward. 3 months after the memorial gathering, I was cleaning out the basement when I found something that would change everything I thought I knew about my family. The basement had been on my list of projects since taking full ownership of the house. Grandma rarely went down there in her later years. The stairs were too steep, the air too damp. It had become a storage space for forgotten things. Holiday? Decorations, old furniture, boxes of papers that no one had looked at in decades. I'd hired a local handyman, Carlos Rivera, to help me sort through it all. He was in his 50s, had done work for Grandma over the years, and knew the house almost as well as I did. "Most of this can probably go to donation," Carlos said, gesturing at a stack of chairs with broken caning. "Unless you want to restore them?" "I don't think so," I said, sneezing from the dust. Grandma kept everything, but some things just need to be let go. We worked through the afternoon, creating piles, keep, donate, trash. It was therapeutic in Hazit Einber away, this physical act of sorting through the past and deciding what deserved to be carried into the future. Then Carlos moved an old steamer trunk, and we both heard it, the hollow sound of something shifting beneath the floorboards. "That's odd," he said, kneeling down. "These boards don't sit right." He pulled at one of the planks, and it came up easily, revealing a small cavity beneath. Inside was a metal lockbox, covered in dust and cobwebs. My heart started racing. "Did you know this was here?" "No idea. I've been working on this house for 15 years and never noticed anything unusual about this floor." He lifted the box out carefully. "It's heavy. What do you think is in it?" "I don't know." My hands were shaking as I took it from him. The lock was rusted but intact. "I need to open this." We carried it upstairs to the kitchen where the light was better. I tried the lock, but it wouldn't budge. Carlos disappeared to his truck and returned with a small bolt cutter. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked. "Might be nothing. Might be something you wish you hadn't found." "I need to know," I said. The lock snapped. I lifted the lid. Inside were documents, lots of them. Letters, photographs, legal papers, and at the very bottom, a leather journal with my grandmother's name embossed on the cover. I pulled out the journal first, my hands trembling. The first entry was dated July 15th, 1978, over 40 years ago. "Today, I made a decision that will haunt me for the rest of my life. But it was the only choice I could make. Patricia doesn't understand. She thinks I'm betraying her. But sometimes love means making the hardest choice, even when everyone will hate you for it." I flipped through the pages, scanning entries. They were cryptic, filled with pain and regret, and references to people and events I didn't understand. Then I found an entry from December 1982. They're growing up now, old enough to ask questions. Patricia forbids me from telling them the truth. She says it will only cause harm. Maybe she's right. Maybe some secrets are meant to stay buried. But every time I look at Margaret's eyes, my daughter's eyes, I see the weight of what I've done. Margaret, my mother. I turned to Carlos. Can you give me some privacy? I need to read this alone. Of course. He gathered his tools. I'll come back tomorrow to finish the basement. You call me if you need anything, okay? After he left, I sat at the kitchen table and read the journal from beginning to end. It took 3 hours. By the time I finished, the sun had set, and I was sitting in darkness. My whole understanding of my family shattered. The truth was this. My grandmother had had an affair. In 1955, Dorothy Mae Thompson, then Dorothy Mae Harrison, was engaged to a man named William Thompson, my grandfather. But during their engagement, she fell in love with someone else. A man named James Mitchell, who worked at the same elementary school where she taught. The affair lasted 6 months. When she discovered she was pregnant, she didn't know who the father was, William or James. She chose to marry William as planned. She never told him about James or her uncertainty about the baby's paternity. My Aunt Patricia was born 7 months after the wedding, premature by the official story, but full term in reality. Years later, when Patricia was 5 years old, James Mitchell contacted Dorothy. He'd seen Patricia at a school event. He knew. The resemblance was unmistakable. He wanted to be in his daughter's life. He threatened to tell William everything if Dorothy didn't allow it. Dorothy refused. She told James that if he ever contacted her family again, she would deny everything and ensure he lost his teaching position for harassment. It was the 1960s. She had the power to destroy him, and they both knew it. James disappeared, left town. According to one journal entry, he died in 1972 in a car accident in California. Patricia never knew. William never knew. They lived their entire lives believing a lie. But the story didn't end there. In 1978, when my mother Margaret was 18, she submitted her DNA to a genealogy website as part of a school project. The results came back with unexpected matches, relatives she didn't recognize, genetic markers that didn't align with the Thompson family tree. Patricia demanded answers. That's when Dorothy finally told her eldest daughter the truth about James Mitchell. Patricia was devastated. Her entire identity, her family history, everything she thought she knew, all of it was built on a lie. She confronted Dorothy, and their relationship never recovered. 6 years later, when my parents died and Dorothy took me in, Patricia refused to let Vanessa stay with us. Not because she didn't want to burden Dorothy, but because she couldn't bear to be around her mother. The anger, the betrayal, it was too much. Vanessa went to California with Aunt Patricia, and I stayed in Portland with Grandma. We were separated not by logistics or practicality, but by Patricia's unresolved rage. The journal's final entries were from just months before Grandma died. Patricia still won't speak to me. 40 years, and she still can't forgive me. I don't blame her. I made a choice to protect my marriage and my family, but in doing so, I robbed her of her truth. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have been honest from the beginning. But I was so young, so scared. I thought I was doing the right thing. Vanessa carries Patricia's anger like a torch. She doesn't know why her mother hates me, but she feels it, and so she stays away. I've lost them both, my daughter and my granddaughter, the price of an old lie. But Abigail stayed. She doesn't know any of this. She loves me simply, without the weight of history. When I'm gone, I hope she finds this journal. I hope she understands. and I hope she can be the bridge that brings this family back together. I closed the journal and sat in the darkness, trying to process it all. Vanessa's anger suddenly made sense. She'd absorbed Patricia's bitterness without understanding its source. She'd felt rejected by Grandma without knowing why. And I, in my ignorance, had been the favored one simply because I didn't carry the burden of knowing. The lockbox contained more than just the journal. There were letters from James Mitchell, photographs of him and Dorothy together, and a sealed envelope addressed to Patricia that was never sent. I opened it. Inside was a letter Dorothy had written shortly before her death. My dearest Patricia, I know you won't read this while I'm alive, so I'm leaving it for you to find after I'm gone. I need you to know that every choice I made out of love. Not just love for William, but love for you. If I had told the truth in 1955, your life would have been marked by scandal. You would have grown up knowing you were conceived in deception. I couldn't do that to you. If I had let James into your life in 1960, you would have been torn between two fathers. I couldn't do that to you either. I chose to carry the burden of the lie so that you could live freely. Perhaps that was selfish. Perhaps I robbed you of a choice that should have been yours. If so, I am truly sorry. But please know this. You have always been my daughter. Not William's, not James's. Mine. And I have loved you with every breath in my body, even when you couldn't love me back. I hope someday you can forgive me. Mom. I sat with these revelations until midnight, turning over every memory, every conversation, seeing them all through this new lens. Grandma hadn't been perfect. She'd made a choice that had fractured her family across generations. But she'd also carried that weight alone for decades, protecting the people she loved from a truth that might have destroyed them. The question now was, what did I do with this information? I could keep it hidden, let the secret stay buried with Grandma. Or I could reach out to Vanessa, to Aunt Patricia, and finally tell them the truth that might explain everything. The distance, the anger, the years of misunderstanding. It was almost funny in a dark way. I'd just finished dealing with one family. Secret, Vanessa's forged will. And now I'd discovered another that went back decades. But this time, I wasn't a victim. I was the keeper of the truth. And I had to decide what to do with it. I picked up my phone and stared at Vanessa's contact information. Our no-contact agreement had expired 3 months ago, but neither of us had reached out. Now I had a reason, maybe the reason, to break the silence. My finger hovered over her name. Then I put the phone down. This wasn't a decision to make at midnight, exhausted and emotional. This required thought, maybe even professional guidance. Tomorrow, I'd call Leonard Fitzgerald. Not for legal advice, but for wisdom. He'd known Grandma for 40 years. Maybe he knew about James Mitchell. Maybe he could help me understand what Grandma would have wanted me to do. I locked the journal and letters back in the metal box and carried it upstairs to my bedroom. That night I barely slept, haunted by questions that had no easy answers. How much truth does a family deserve? When does honesty become cruelty? And can old wounds ever truly heal? Or do we just learn to live with the scars? By morning, I'd made a decision. But first, I needed to make one phone call. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready